I expected Punisher to be the story of Frank Castle and his family. Instead, I feel like it's the story of Micro and his family. Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing episodes 8, 9, and 10 of Punisher on Netflix. Now, in the comic books, you kind of have this cyclic nature, where you keep going back to the death of his family, but at the same time you need to move on to him fighting other villains, because you can't retread the same stories. Now, in this, we obviously are still retreading the origin a bit, but at the same time, we need to move on, give him someone else to be, something else to be. Before we go too much into that, for those of you that don't know, in case this is your first time here, what I do is I dissect stories. I do it in the form of doing theory videos every Sunday and doing reviews as stories come up. If that sounds interesting, click subscribe so we can review The Punisher. Now, I started off by saying that Frank was the man in the hole, and he definitely is. But I think that this is also the story of Micro, who has gone from rags to riches, or from riches to rags, and then is going to go back from rags to riches. The theme of the episodes has been very strong, especially in this section, about dealing with how you deal with loss, how you deal with being away, the loneliness, and all of that is very good. I still think that as much as in the second half of the season, they're going a little more black and white with Frank being the good guy, they could definitely use a little bit more clarity at the beginning of the season, but they seem to have self-corrected, so I'm not going to give them too much shit. And at the same time, point blank, Punisher is an anti-hero at best. So, before we get too much into details, let me throw this up there. So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time. Like I said, these 3 episodes are very much Micro and his family. And that really comes through hard in the first episode. Episode 8, Cold Steel. His son has a knife. His son's being a bully. At the end of the day, Frank was pretty right to go at him aggressively. He needed to convince him, show him that he was someone. But like Micro says, there's war inside you, dude. And maybe, just maybe, that's all you're good for. I really, really knew from episodes ago that sooner or later that kiss was going to happen. And, well, let's be honest, this is definitely what would happen. Frank's not exactly an ugly dude, and he's helping her out and doing all these things for her, and she doesn't know he's doing it because he's trying to help Micro. And as much as we have had a lot of action sequence, a lot of brutal scenes, I'm actually surprised how much in the middle of this season we don't have Frank gunning people down. And it's a pleasant surprise. Last episode, like I said, we had the whole thing where he asked what happens when you shoot at people just doing their jobs, which is the question I asked episodes before. They've kind of handled that by saying that those people in the episode Gunner were Anvil contractors, not soldiers, but I don't know if that's really that big of a difference. I mean, even if they're the bad guys, they're still just doing their jobs. They don't know they're the bad guys. I mean, I guess this time around, they brought in people who were bad guys and who had already shot at people, and they go out of their way to showcase the fact that these people are going to be shooting at Homeland Security and trying to kill them because they're bad people that just want money. And I do think it's interesting that we end this episode with blood on hands. Remember how the other episode began with blood on hands? Except this time the person washing it off isn't themselves. Pretty Boy's gonna die. Maybe not. Maybe he's just gonna get disfigured and become Jigsaw. I'm still waiting to see. Oof. The series is good, though. Alright. So, Frank goes to the kid, and Madani sets a trap, and pretty much everything goes to hell, which is about where you expect it in episode 8. We're coming into the home stretch now with just a handful of episodes to go. And I'm still really enjoying this. This is the most coherent, straight-through plotline we've gotten from Netflix so far. The only one that I think did any better was Defenders, and even that had only 7 episodes, so we're well past that. What do you think? Meanwhile, I'm going to move on to Front Toward Enemy. Episode 9 picks up right where it left off, and there's one type of torture that works very well, the type we see here, when you're torturing yourself. Survivor's guilt is a big part of Punisher, and as such, when Agent Madani is faced with it, she's starting to crack. The blood isn't on her hands the way it was with the guy that murdered someone. It's on her hands because she's the one that planned the op, she's the one that pushed the numbers, she's the one that thought she had everything under control. And at the end of the day, special forces military against police action, even advanced police action like Homeland Security, this is probably the only way it would have ended. But while dealing with that, boom! How did I forget about the pressure cooker who was making bombs? I mean, seriously, how did I forget that kid? But boom, those explosions rocked out of nowhere, and reminds me of the fact that Punisher has someone else to handle right now. And playing up our shades of gray is the senator who doesn't believe in gun violence, who, of course, is hiring Anvil with their gun-toting maniacs to be his protection. And then just to ramp this up more is the fact that people are confusing the bomber with what the Punisher did. And you know what? It's easy enough to do. Somebody's killing people and they think they're doing it right and they're trying to do it for what they want to do. Am I talking about Punisher or Agent Orange here? Or the very soon to become the supervillain here? Alright. Micro's all sorts of messed up and has decided to contact the Homeland Security. He's decided that no matter what Frank thinks, he has to do this himself. And I understand that. I mean, are Frank and him partners? I'm not even sure what they are to each other. Meanwhile, Frank goes out to stop the bomber because he got Karen's number. And we do get to see that battle wagon finally, but still not the way I really want to see it. But it's getting closer. But more importantly, episode 8 is really about Netflix stepping out and saying, hey, what do these soldiers all have in common? Yeah, okay, Frank Castle is the Punisher. He's a comic book anti-hero. But at the end of the day, look at all these people. Look at what Madani is going through. She's fighting what is basically post-traumatic stress disorder. And, I mean, not just basically, it is. She's blaming herself. She saw her partner die, and she's blaming herself. And even though he's an ass, Pretty Boy's right. Some days you blame yourself, some days you blame the enemy. But look at how everyone's handling it differently. Micro, Frank, the Marines, the Army guy, even Karen to a certain extent has this sort of, hey, all this stress built up and I've seen so much stuff that I probably shouldn't. Heck, I mean, just they all handle it differently. And some of them are trying to do what's right and are doing it wrong. And some of them are trying to do what's wrong just because it's what feels good in the moment. Because all these people are different types of people. But at the end of the day, they're all dealing with the same sort of craziness. I've known good men, I've known bad men. And I've seen them all get stressed. I've known people who were in the military, I knew people who weren't. At the end of the day, I have a lot of family who are cops. This is exactly the sort of story, and the reason why we tell them is because this is important. And maybe that's why this might be the most important Netflix series yet. And it's definitely why this is the most realistic depiction of Punisher, much more so than in the comics. At least that's what I'm thinking as of episode 9. I'm curious what you think, especially with the fact that we've kind of dovetailed into this whole Lewis Mad Bomber story. One last not-so-cool thing is, alright, Punisher takes down the cops. And when he does so, he does so by throwing a rock at one of their heads and then beating the other one into the police car until they fall down. And we're supposed to be cheering this as the less violent solution. Yay, he didn't kill the cops. Or did he? I want you to think about this for a second. Anytime you punch someone hard enough to knock them out, they might not get back up. Or you might cause serious brain damage. I mean, I know the action series play fast and loose with this. It's why Archer has that whole joke. Ooh, you got hit hard enough to pass out? That's bad. I guess, yay, he didn't shoot them. And I have to ask, once he got hit on the news at the end of this episode, Shouldn't other people be hunting him? Like, where's Spider-Man right now? But okay, enough of me complaining about things I actually know the answer to. Let's move on to episode 10, Virtue of the Vicious. And with this being episode 10 and only 3 episodes to go, I think we've completely alleviated the Netflix curse. There is no episode so far that is drawn out or been just filler. It's entirely brilliant. Unless they jump the shark with this or next episode, I think Punisher might be the most coherent, straightforward episodes of any of the Netflix series yet. And episode 10 plays around with the plotting a little bit. Remember, plot isn't just the story, it's the order of events. And because we keep doing flashbacks, because we get it from different people's point of view, it's a great way to look at storytelling devices that we don't often see. Well, maybe we do. The idea of where the villain actually lies and who actually did what, and whether or not Frank was involved or culpable in what happened to Karen is interesting. But I think the fact that Micro was running around is just as interesting. Micro has decided to take things into his own hands and contact the Homeland Security. Meanwhile, we get a very poignant end to the storyline and what happens to soldiers. I guess we have the answer as to how some people handle PTSD. Not too well. Then again, pretty much no one's handling it well, because I don't know if it's possible to. Overall, though, episode 10 is pretty badass, and has confirmed me as this is the best Netflix series yet. This is going maybe even beyond a gold rating, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, I wonder what you thought of the odd storytelling, and the way they told it from different points of view. And more importantly, what do you think about the fact that Anvil people are getting killed? Are the Anvil agents just doing their job, and should they be given a little more leeway? Or is the fact that they work for the bad guy enough to make you sit there and say, nah, they deserve what they get? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Especially tell me if you think that there's going to be another surprise on who the villain is here. I don't think there is. I think we're pretty straightforward at this point. And as always, if you like my ramblings, give me a thumbs up, a share, and of course, if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel, because we're building this up in order to try to get to the heart of all of the stories we tell. If you're interested in joining us, let me know. For now, I hope you have a good night. I'm going to watch more Punisher.